I guess if Mark shows up, we'll backtrack a little bit, or shall we wait another couple of minutes? Yes.
The approach, this is your and the authority over your room. I'm just the humble city manager who can extend it over other rooms. And yeah, expired yesterday, but we are, still wearing masks at least through in the buildings and through March.
Case count was now like 26 today.
Low count, but then it may go back up. Yeah, the last case count we had seen was 42. But since we're going to have a very crowded gymnasium, the events that were going on wanted face masks for the visitors and everything else. So, and I'm doing my own little scientific experiment to see if we can have less illness after the Iditarod.
Would be interesting.
I
Iditarod.
personal experience.
We're going to have a lot more hand sanitizers set up there and more cleaning. It'll be interesting.
And Trent was traveling with him, he might have a lot of luggage.
Going like, holy.
Come back with 8 pieces.
Time you coming in, your father-in-law
My dad.
or your dad?
Well, no message from Mark, so back up if we need. Everybody has a packet with the split out of the ordinances. And then Glenn, can you tell us anything new from?
Okay, the one question I know Brian looked into of our own store and maintain the private sector with the bars. There is no license for that. I know that you may have heard Senate Bill 9, Title 4, alcohol rewrite. There's no mention over there. The only way if is if Neil could even possibly get it in, but this is, I understand, has been a multi-year effort to get this approved. So,
I would say the chances are little to none to get any amendments to it
well, I would
or
agree on
anything
that.
substantive.
I've asked Wendy and Bill's Andreas and
Basically, the, yes, there's been quote unquote, this is a result of negotiation between all of the parties that have some interest in the thing, and you change one thing and it just scuttles the whole thing. This isn't the first year. I think that, it seems to me that they've brought this rewrite up a couple of times and not a lot of appetite, seems like, to do anything to it. So I think so. If a local option was to stores, sounds like we also could run bars, but bars could not run bars. All right, well, that answers that one a little more clearly.
excise tax. Brooks replied,
Excuse me.
an excise tax on alcohol is prohibited by AS 0421.010C. It is possible to impose a higher rate of sales tax on sales of alcohol as long as at least one other product or service is also subject to that. The rate of taxation would it be for alcohol sales would be subject to voter approval, and it can for taxing air conditioners.
See a lot of alcohol and tobacco tax things combined, probably.
Tried that one. Do the alcohol, tobacco. And we put them together. It didn't pass.
That basically kills the idea, really, of excise tax was targeted at alcohol.
Well, I mean, I
Whether it
guess
be-
Of the
we,
excise tax.
Excise tax.
yeah, I mean, we'd have to pick some other thing
Definitely a second sin.
that, or, I mean, it can't be, or everything is just higher.
You can't just isolate that.
Can't
It has to be
isolate the
looked at
one.
You already
revenue
have a bid
generation.
tax.
Yeah, it's 6%. It's
6%.
First term.
Yeah. gonna raise a whole lot of revenue for services and stuff.
Well, everybody, we've had these ordinances B, C, D, E, and worse. Well, actually, B, I guess, does everything. Is that what it is, Brian?
B was the original,
Okay.
gave you all of the 305 and the original, and the original split out by 30, one by hours and one by bottle and
Public comments on any of these? Have you had an opportunity to look at them? Guess they're
No,
different than what we had last time.
I didn't know we had an alcohol.
There
It's
is
not
one,
active.
but no.
It's been different for
talked about
Trust
it
me,
a
I'm
level
not
before,
suggesting.
but there was some reason to leave it in place. Bit of it.
Here before that I thought it'd be better to try one thing at a time. or two, not try everything, because then you don't know what works, you know, what, is it results we get. We're not impacting them. You know, if something doesn't work, try the next thing or whatever. That does take some time. Or maybe even bundling. But I did share it the last time. I suggested that, you know, the reason this topic came up was because of behavior on Front Street, and wondered if anybody had talked to the folks on Front Street. So we did our little survey, and we asked them, you know, why do you hang out on Front Street? And none of them, I think folks that we interviewed face to face, none of them said because the alcohol is in a convenient location. And we know, I think we've all determined over the last couple of weeks, that they're hiking to Hanson's because it's cheaper. So the location of the alcohol was not mentioned. What they said was, we socialize, we know our friends are there. As you can imagine, a lot of them don't have cell phones and don't get with each other, so they meet up on Front Street. They like to hang out there. They said things like they feel like it's a safe place. They stand in the doorways of the buildings because it protects them from rain and wind. And so in the course of a conversation, the one evening with a couple folks that were at the table and pretty had a solution of their own that I thought I would just share. They said, why couldn't there be a 3-sided structure that would protect from wind and rain? It could be plexiglass or glass so that it's visible, you know, what's happening in there. And restrooms. They definitely said restrooms. They complained about the metal toilets at the day shelter. A lot of these folks have spent time in jail, and it felt to them like a jail cell with the metal toilets. So they even had some opinions about that. But we also asked them a second question a couple of days later. If the city restricts the sale of alcohol, we just made it drink less, do you think you'll drink the same amount? And do you have any interest in pursuing the path of sobriety? So a couple of them expressed a desire, sobriety, and some of them did not know about the outpatient program, or said they didn't know, although they spent time at the day shelter. They should know, but you know, depends on how you ask the question, I guess. But all of them said they'll drink the same. But we tried to ask the folks that we know are the ones putting the greatest strain on our public safety. I mean, we sort of know everybody by first name who we're all talking about here. And so I just thought that's good information for you to have.
Only for people in front.
At the day shelter, though, are at that end of town. So if they are hanging out in this part of town, the night shelter nest is not open during the day.
Doorways are definitely an attractive.
Sure.
They hang in the doorways to get out of the wind for sure, and smoke and drink and do whatever they do.
Well, and I think, you know, the idea of a multi-sided, you know, somewhat protection from the elements, and again, having a see-through type of thing. Been some discussion about doing that, and again, you know, people wanting it Front Street. So it's like, we don't want it right here. Can we move it further down? And so, you know, it seemed like a place where there was some natural shelter as well was right at the corner of the quote unquote middle beach. The Rockwell comes along and then it takes a little bit of an L there. That lived up on the street immediately above it. It's like, we don't want that shit going on in our area. So that's a direct quote.
Gonna go on in the summertime anyway.
Right.
They'll not open at night in the summertime.
Yep.
So they don't see it in the wintertime because we're there, but the wintertime is when they're trying to shield themselves during the day from the wind.
Right.
Right, wet days like this are really, really hard on people. They come in, their shoes are soaked, their socks are soaked. First thing we do every night is put clean socks on everybody, and it's, yeah, trying to stay out of rain. It rains really worse than the snow.
Right.
No, this is gonna sound like a stupid question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Why isn't the day shelter open, or the nest open in the summer?
So funding number one. Number two, the first year of COVID, we stay open an extra year. We actually got COVID funding that we asked to stay open an extra month. We thought we might stay open an extra 2 months. People want to be outside. They want to be on the beach. They want to be out. And so a couple of nights in a row, we only had 2 or 3 people.
It'll be open
And we've got to
nobody
have 2
show up.
staff members, for 2 or 3 people. Yeah, just wasn't worth it.
Right over here behind the visitor center, where there's about 15 people over there right now.
If you go beyond it, facility that's a shelter. We don't have a facility that's a shelter. It wouldn't pass fire marshal approval, none of that stuff. It would need a sprinkler system and all that. That's why we stuck with the emergency shelter model, because we don't have a facility to take a shelter. We would have to do that. So we stuck with an emergency model, no matter. Anymore, because they'll be pretty much housed, but it's aside.
The reason you're seeing them
I
there
don't
is
think
the,
that's true, though.
The shelter on Front Street or somewhere down here with bathrooms and windbreaks or whatever, won't that just continue to attract more folks to
It
the
has never-
location?
Has
Okay.
never.
It is a disease, once you're apt to be able to get to that point where you get to the disease stage. Well, when they first come here, a lot of times people traveling here don't start out with the disease after they've been for quite a while, because they have a nice place to stay. I know personally some people that I know from White Mountain, when they've been this big fall staying over here at the hotel, that weren't necessarily part of the normal people that would come there, but they're staying here because they have a good place to stay, and I guess it beats hanging out at home in White Mountain for the winter. That's part of the fact. Yes, we do have a few homeless people, like we've always had, but we don't have 80 homeless people.
yeah,
Well,
Right.
between 40 over here and 40 here, that's 80.
right. Only 5 of the people on that list at the Nugget and a few of the folks that are at the Aurora. Out of that whole mix of folks, only 5 of them have been to past. So we're expecting those 5 will join us again.
Yeah.
The other folks, there is one family with children that we're actually going to house. Some of the other folks, we've been actually talking to them. We tried to put together an alternate shelter. We asked the Baptist Church if they would consider us to put the hotel folks there for those couple of weeks. They took it to their board and they said no. So we have one other place we're going to ask, and we have some mission volunteers coming in during Iditarod. They'll be here for a couple of weeks, and we talked to them about one of our staff and one of theirs, so we could have 2 sets of people in 2 places. But in the course of doing that, we've been trying to have conversations with some of the folks in the hotel, and some of them do have family members they can bunk with for a couple, but wouldn't be welcome long term. So I don't think we're going to have as big a problem as we might have thought originally, but I think we're back for a couple of weeks, maybe to their village. I don't know, because I don't know how many of them, were coming in for the village.
ultimately, getting folks to feel like and be serious about pursuing a path of sobriety should be where we're going. And seems like we should, if we're going to put resources into anything, that's what we ought to be putting them towards, getting that to happen. And I'm had enough people say that these other things that we're doing are just enabling people, and it's harsh. The an illness, but I guess the I mean I guess, do we just make it convenient for people to continue to degrade their health? Like Norton Sound, the programs that they have in behavioral health, and that's doesn't seem like attendance picks up.
Right now. It's a drug that takes away the urge to drink, quite a few of them. So Friday night, one of Liz Johnson, who's our housing resource coordinator, has started visiting nests because the chronic home waiting list for our housing, and we want to get to know them and get to their stories and try and determine their readiness for housing by the time our project's up and running. Friday night, she was there for 3 hours. During that 3-hour period of time, only 2 people were heavily intoxicated. The other folks had been drinking but carried on conversations. They were able to tell stories. Was pretty impressed with the staff and how well organized they were and how they dealt with issues as people were coming in. And at that time, 25 people were in the shelter, extremely quiet. They were sitting around playing Scrabble, playing card games and things like that. So we're noticing fewer folks coming in, staggering in so severely that they can't even make it in. We haven't had to make as many police calls to help us get somebody in or to haul somebody off, So we're starting to see that, the program's only been open for a short time. They have started their outpatient program, and we know of a couple of clients in some of our other programs that are participating in that. And those programs they're not only doing alcohol treatment, but they're doing parenting classes, they're doing support groups, they're doing peer groups while they're there. They have to report for a certain period of time. They're housed while they're here going through the program. But it is going to take time. And, the minute somebody says to us, I'm ready, we try to get them connected. But some of those folks need to go out for 90-day or 120-day programs, and the availability of a bed when somebody's ready. If there's no bed when they're ready, it's really, really tough, and then they slide back in. So I think I think we're starting to see, some progress a little bit at a time. I was going to say housing solution. Working on that piece.
Like to just illuminate the issue of enabling. Somebody's in that position, you're going to have to enable. Much choice, but the path, which one are you going to take? Enabling them by giving them some housing, nice place to live, that will help get towards the sobriety. Science-based evidence and anecdotal evidence at this point, which is evidence over time based on experience. Or do you want to enable them to drink more? Restrict things, you restrict the alcohol, you create other problems. Maybe they get arrested now because they're importing on the plane. And now they're going to drink more over that. So and you're enabling them to jail. It's still enabling, which enable my 2 cents.
I guess listening to some of the testimony down here, enabling them to jail is what there are citizens of the community ending because of what they're seeing here. And so, because I thought about it too on, the enabling thing, I mean, that maybe, for the maintenance drinker or whatever, I mean, we don't want them to have, a liter at a time, but, this thing where you have a card, you can go over there and, the tap will open for one shot. And, you blew your one shot for the hour, you can come back in another hour and get the second one. I mean, that's not practical, but I mean, it seems like that, what's the, is it trazodone or something or whatever? I mean, what do they give to folks for, yeah, heroin withdrawal?
They don't give anything for heroin withdrawal.
Okay,
Methadone is for alcohol withdrawal.
have to go into the store, into the recovery?
You mean methadone?
Methadone, thank you, methadone. What's that for?
That's for, that's a replacement. That's a different type of therapy. So you have, and there's only 2 methadone treatment centers in Alaska. One is in Fairbanks, one is in Anchorage. And basically, and one in Kodiak, there's a third, I'm sorry. Kodiak opened up one since I kind of left the field a little bit. And it's a maintenance drug. So you, instead of going to the dealer and getting the heroin and all that, you go to the hospital and get the LAMB, which is LAMB. It'll hold you for a week, but you're still addicted to a drug. It's a different type of therapy. It's been around for a long time. They brought it around during Vietnam. Just like they did from Afghanistan. And methadone and clinics are running pretty strong. Heroin addicts here, if you open it up.
Yes, what I was suggesting is there's something that they can do for that. What is the thing for alcohol?
Vivitrol, she mentioned it earlier. I brought it into this town when I was working at Kelly Strauss, and the psychiatrist. And Vivitrol it just makes you sick. When you drink, you get sick. Violently, pretty quickly for most people. But that only lasts about a half an hour.
No,
Once they
30
figure
the Vivitrol is the 30-day.
30 days.
Yeah.
That's
The
the
other
shot.
drug that makes you sick
Yeah.
is, the
The
shot.
shot. The shot.
And it lasts 30 days. You go in every 30 days.
You can get a
And-
shot.
And we
You
have
gotta really
folks,
not want to drink.
But any
If you know
drug,
you're going to.
any drug.
so
Right.
our folks that are on that say that it really removes their desire to
Right.
drink.
There too.
Yes.
The Vivitrol
Yes.
does do
And
that.
again, they have to want, but we have folks that have gotten Vivitrol and.
Yeah, they'll
continue
still
drinking.
drink, yeah.
Continue. Because they're not,
Is there any court system in Alaska that allows you to mandate that people
you
go
have
on
to
it?
deem them incompetent.
Mandate them where?
Like Bethel had some type of. call.
Called a drug and alcohol.
Drug
Drug
and
alcohol.
alcohol court.
Does it involve this
Mm-hmm.
type of therapy as part of the remedy?
Queric was going to do that a long time ago. It is an option that would work very well here. I tried, but it never got traction. And I wouldn't even know who to revisit to ask about that. It's a tribal court. In a sense.
It was brought up a couple of years ago, and actually Judge Benedito's the one that shot it down. They were gonna put it in the small courtroom. It was just a staffing issue, I think, ultimately, getting state staff to operate that, because that court would run every day, 5 days.
Judge from here that went to Bell.
Yeah. I worked on that with him back.
Devaney.
Devaney.
Devaney, yep, you got it, Laney Devaney.
About the one option to size, one bottle a day or whatever. How would you be able to? How would you keep track of somebody buying one here?
I mean,
Like
we're
just
just
the
gonna,
thought to create a database or something, or every time somebody purchases.
Unless they on their own, I don't believe the city can.
no, not with this
We
new
don't-
thing I just
We
read.
don't wanna,
Can't, no security guards, nothing, can't do any of that.
So one of the things is the runners. We have quite a few people have no IDs, but they've got plenty of alcohol bottles in their backpacks.
One at a time, please.
And we noticed right now we have folks doing quite a bit of running.
Mhm.
And so I think Shoney's keeping in touch with officers to let them know whenever she sees that. But, you know, it's been interesting. All the people that we've housed had no ID when we housed them. And so we had to help them get their IDs and, you know, get all those things in place. You know, like, no IDs, so where are they getting their alcohol? You know, the whole deal with the runners is a big issue.
The hours that they're running.
24/7.
You know, I don't know if we know because of course they're not gonna, you know,
Is it from
our
11 to
clients aren't gonna
4?
tell on them. Wonder if the stores have any sense of that, I don't know. Should be careful.
We spot the runners at my store, not hard to spot them, but there's nothing you can do about it. There's no laws, there's no nothing. Don't come back for that. But that's a responsible business owner. That's about it.
State statute, have
nothing that
I was reading that chapter 4, title 4 today. There was something in there about it being illegal to purchase for someone else.
There is something in there, I don't remember which one, but there is something.
to give it to a minor.
Just for anyone else.
Proper.
And when I read it, I was thinking, well, gee, if you're on a date and you buy your girlfriend a drink, you know, I mean,
Yeah,
technically
right,
that
right, right.
violate the law, but I think it was aimed at runners.
People that are not authorized to buy alcohol. Remember, in the
Right.
state system, red stripe on them. So I've gone to buy in a liquor store in Anchorage, and they make everybody in the car come in and show their ID, essentially to alleviate exactly what you're talking about. So if you've got people that without an ID that are getting alcohol through a straw purchase, I believe in Title IV, there's a provision where that's not allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will tell you, on Thursday, I got about 7 or 8 phone calls to answer Mark's question about what time the runners are going. People observing the runners all hit Hanson's. It
That's
was
where
a
they're
big,
going now, yeah.
yeah, it was a big push. Laura's not on Thursday afternoons, Thursday evening, and it was about starting at 5:30 till about 7 o'clock. There was a huge push for runners. And
Or clerk, that's supposed to be the one that takes care of everything, according to the store manager that was here last meeting. Is supposed to make sure that they don't serve to somebody who's doing the running. Doesn't happen. That's the idea of the security guard, that you have something that's more attentive to watching for something like that. Because you'd see the same person either buying several bottles at a time or coming back and forth several times.
I don't know, in fairness to across the street, I don't know if Hanson's is operating with keeping a list of people. And Street has been keeping this, and people are upset that AC's over there has been keeping a list. So that if someone comes in and they present a license, they'll go down their list, see whether that person can purchase alcohol or is. That's, I think, what is the big difference going on between Hanson's and AC's? The other issue is Hanson's is aggressively pricing their alcohol right
Disagree with that.
now.
The beer I like to drink is $5 less over here across the street than it is at Hanson's.
Well, but people were saying the cheap
Right.
booze was a lot cheaper.
They told us it's $5 cheaper. I don't know which size
There's
bottle.
other,
It says
there's
$5
other things. I don't drink beer for the most part.
I'm just saying, that's not a
Some of the
universal
prices,
statement.
when I was doing price
I'd like
checks,
to,
it was cheaper up there.
I'd like to illuminate some of the marijuana law.
Hey, John, can I make a suggestion, just to
Yes.
try to stay on topic here? You know, we've got a list of 3 rough ideas. Helpful to just take, sort of a straw poll really quick to see what the council kind of thinks. I mean, some of them probably doesn't make sense to talk about them if there's not council support for them. Right.
Well, sure, yeah, no,
Just
that's,
to get a starting point.
that's fine, but I guess I kind of let it wander a little bit in that, I mean, these things coming up before didn't. It'd be nice to hear what it is, but I think trying to figure out, what other options or opportunities do we have out there, as opposed to what I'm hearing from, other folks is don't take my rights away because
Right.
that guy can't do it.
And to be perfectly candid, if there's not the support to do something, I don't want to, waste a lot of time talking
Well,
about
question
something
is,
that's
is it
not
the
going to
right
have the
thing to
support
do?
to pass. I mean, we've already
Is it-
Right.
kind of talked a
Question
lot of
is,
this
is,
stuff.
right,
I was wondering.
question is it the right thing to do? Is it going to help curb things?
Right.
So, I know there's some people that feel pretty strongly about it, and if the council, I'm not trying to stop any debate about it.
Well,
Making progress.
I think though we've flirt with the rules a little bit. And you can't take a work
I understand
session.
that.
You can't
I get
vote
that.
on things. So taking a straw vote, even though you call it a straw vote, it's a vote.
You're asking for people to voice their opinion on what they
Yeah,
think
I'll just,
might be the what you're asking.
And you can kind of get a feel from people's opinions what the outcome would
I'm
be.
not as verbally as adept as Greg.
Okay, well, I guess this would be a way to do it is, the only, no ordinance made it to the agenda last. And so the purpose of this was to, we discussed this '08, which was all inclusive, and that resulted in the rest of the. A simple way to do it is, to have 2 members that are willing to introduce one of these ordinances. And if 2 people wish to introduce an ordinance, it moves forward. If not,
We've done that before.
yeah. So, okay, so the one to require security, do we have,
Offer to do during a work session too.
I guess,
We're only,
We're not really.
Yeah. we're just asking for 2 people to say they wanted to go to the agenda.
What is it again?
Uh,
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, we-
security guard.
little additional discussion on that specific item, and then after that, so feeling like they want to bring that forward.
I think that'd be helpful. That'd be the way
Yeah.
to go. Just tackle it one at a time and
Thank you.
I mean, I can start, I'm, like I said in the meeting, I don't think it's the role of government to get that far down into the weeds on regulating how a business runs its business. I think we can set requirements. I mean, if this was something where we're saying you need to make sure that your premises stay clean and free of excess bottles and litter and all that kind of stuff. I think we can enforce that. I'd be more likely to go along with that, but to say hire X number of cashiers during these hours, or you need to hire a security guard, or you need to have someone that's on your staff specifically to shovel the sidewalk out front and they can't do anything else. I think that's overreach.
I think it's the least intrusive of all three of these things here. There's problems inside. We just heard from Paul, somebody talking about how, staff are overwhelmed with people coming in with runners. We're not intruding on, we're just requiring if you have a package store, we're not requiring, create, a little security, both inside and outside. So I think from a government intrusion on private business, it's the least intrusive of the three there. And to be perfectly candid, I'm surprised that there's such pushback for it. But the reality is, if people don't support it, I'm not going to, keep continuing to push for it. I think it'd be one of the people that are willing to do it. But if there's
Ask a question, the security guard, exactly what are they supposed to catch? And I only ask that is, were they not supposed to catch some of the things in E, like repeat people and bottles?
whatever the rules are that are in place.
Right, but
You
so.
know, if we decide on a one bottle rule, then that's part of what they're doing. If we decide not to do it, obviously they're not going to. So whatever the store and whatever rules that the municipality decides to put in. So, I think security guards are pretty effective. Just simply from the appearance. So we have talked about where there are issues with people congregating outside on that property. You do create a little bit of sense of order, and if somebody's thinking about running, they see a guy at the front door or a lady at the front door, and they're watching, they're probably not going to try it. So it's the deterrent effect.
Right. Not to be used for any legitimate purpose. But pull up the map of that property if you can, please, so that we see what the borders kind of sort of are of the Nome Liquor property.
Pulls that up, John, if I may. When I look at a security guard or a loss prevention officer or whatever they want to call them in the store, right now, the singular person that stops somebody from buying alcohol that might be on a list over here or too intoxicated up at the other one, all three stores, thinking of them all equally, it's friends and relatives of people that may or may not really need to be buying. They're enabling, like Greg said. They're choosing to enable at the liquor. And there's nobody to say, there's no third party essentially, which is what I think that loss prevention or security guard does, is say, no, you can't buy. We're on the list. I'm the person that gets to say you're not on the list, and the clerk behind the cash register isn't held. It isn't having to say no to family members and no to friends and so forth. That I am sure, anecdotally, you could watch daily. Those people are just sliding through. There are people. So to me, that's what I think of that position. Really, just kind of an overwatch, and to me, it is like it was mentioned in here before. It's kind of like the trooper on the overpass. You might have some deterrent. People might slow down and say, "Hey, I'm not going to go in the store and do that." Is it going to stop them from getting alcohol at the end of the day? I think Ron is absolutely correct, and I think that we know that. But if we can find a way to curb it a little bit, again, we're not going to eat this whole darn mess with any one of these ordinances or all of them combined. But or somebody may be going to have the opportunity to say, "All right, today's my day that I want to be sober," instead of going in there and trying to get by and get that, and afford them the opportunity, and they maybe enable that better choice. I don't know.
not a controlled mosaic, I think they call it, of the thing. It's just a picture that's been put underneath a here. And you can see it's not quite registered to Nome Liquor, but if you move the Nome Liquor box so that it was over the building, you can see there's 0, 0, 0. Lot lines.
Yeah, that one.
They don't own any of it.
They don't own
Nothing's
any of it.
happening on their property.
So,
But again, they're there to report. I mean, that's just, they don't, they're there to report. They're there to create a presence. I think it's a great idea. If there's enough support on the council, I would support it going to a resolution, but if there's not, stop it.
Important to see that there is no liquor store owner representatives here to talk about these. Means, do they care?
They're waiting until it goes to a meeting where it actually would be voted on.
Yeah, but why aren't they here part of the solution to say, hey, this is what we think would work, or this is do already? Like Julius did, say this is what we do presently. And I don't know, and now they moved up to Hanson, just like was kind of thought I would do if there was more resistance down here.
And I will add one caveat, they should be licensed by the state of Alaska. It's like an 8-hour class. For security guard, that should be, there's a very simple, certification, not for armed guards or anything, but just in armed security, just to make sure that they.
I'm on the fence because I agree with Gerald and I agree with you. I agree with Gerald that the city shouldn't do overreach on private businesses. It's considered overreach or what to do. But I'm also agreed that the clerks that have the TAM cards, is that right? TAP or TAP? TAM cards just I don't think most of them are responsible enough or they're too overwhelmed or whatever to do the job that would be necessary to really run a thing. And the private owner is not there monitoring it either.
Yeah, I mean, the business owner is going to be looking at minimizing expenses.
so why would security guard make it?
Right, they're still being paid by the business owner.
Because that'd be their from that standpoint, that'd be their job, basically. Yeah, but they don't do it. Because they're too busy.
I mean, it's like,
You think that security guards?
the example that Paul mentioned, the trooper on the overpass. The troopers, I would say the trooper on the toll road, okay? Toll road overpass. The toll road operator wants to maximize profits. They want as many people on that road as possible, right? Trooper's not being paid by the toll road operator. Trooper's being paid by the state. So enforcement typically comes from outside. You can put the rules in place for the business. The rules are already there. They're not supposed to be selling to runners. They're not supposed to be selling to people on the list. They're not supposed to be doing all this stuff that you want the security guard to enforce. But in my opinion, the way to fix that is you run a few sting operations. You have the police maybe undercover. That's probably not possible in a small town, but everybody knows everybody. But you catch them doing it wrong, and you fine them, and you make it difficult for them to make a profit unless they do it right. And then it's their decision if they want to hire a security guard to make sure that all the rules keep getting followed. They'll do that instead of paying, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in fines. But I still don't think I'm arguing a lot harder than I should. So I'll just stop there. I think I've made my point as far as how I feel.
To quote Greg, we are enabling the business to enforce the rules.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I just pose a thought here, though? All of us employers in Nome are short.
Right.
The hospital vacant security guard positions, and they pay very well. The stores have big signs out there trying to hire. They don't have inventory on their shelves because they don't have enough workers to put the inventory on their shelves. You come up with an ordinance that you have to hire a security guard. If that position's vacant for a couple months, can they not sell alcohol? I think it's a real issue happening in Nome right now for all of us, trying to hire and fill positions and find people qualified to do the work, able and willing to do the work, because a lot of folks who might apply for a position like that, it could be their family members that they're gonna have to report on or, report to somebody about. So I think that's a concern we need to think about, if we're gonna place a mandate to hire in that position. There's been vacant positions open for a long.
The city doesn't have enough money to have a cruiser sit down there at for opening time or have employ people to be walking the streets that are not family members to help be a
That's where the
presence.
CSOs come in, isn't it?
Yes.
Make a requirement, I'll figure out how to get it done.
She is?
No.
No?
Is there ways that we can encourage the existing trained
We
Boys,
enforce the rules that are already out.
right, no, and what's that, and
Maybe
that's
they-
what I'm asking, what rules can we help?
Well, I mean, I guess the thing is selling to an intoxicated person, those types of things. I mean, I think right now it's, these guys, if they aren't doing a damn good job of making sure that the wrong people aren't buying some booze over there, they're frickin' stupid. Because, if they start getting violations, that go through the ABC board, I'm in a place as far as a license is concerned. If they're violating the law, that's one thing. If it's somebody that's a customer that walks in and, is misbehaving once they leave, that's a different ball.
Does the city have the will to do that enforcement, to have those sting operations and so forth? And the reason I ask, because when Bob Estes got here, we observed exactly what you're talking. They were selling to intoxicated people. The goal was then to find someone to get them to go in, because the first violation, the employer, they're shut down for 30 days. And then it's 90 days, and then it's 180 days. They've got some real live teeth over at it's not the ABC board anymore. But there was no will in the city for them to actually go and essentially park a cruiser across the street and actually enforce that downtown. Now, things
No,
changed,
because
council
the
changed and
request
stuff like
was to the ABC board to do their job.
that's part of it, without a doubt.
It wasn't that the city has to hire yet another person to do somebody else's job.
All I was trying to do is get private industry to take some of the burden on of enforcement. I mean, it's three, I'm the only one that supports it here. That's not gonna be enough, 3 against and Mark's on the fence. So to be honest, I'm tired of talking about this. We'll move forward.
If somebody
This
changes
is
their
what happened
mind.
with all
It happens with,
our.
That's true.
I mean, it changed the way we elect representatives or
Let's,
the way.
let's stay on.
I'm with Adam on this.
Okay, package store,
I actually agree with that one.
Yeah, see.
package store hours.
Adam's back.
Any changes to package store
That's right.
hours?
I'll start the conversation. I also support it. I think it was John's idea, go 1 to 7. Again, the harm. trying to reduce the availability, the time out. I think the stores are open, 11 hours now? Now we're talking about reducing to 6. I know that we tried to talk about, not impacting the rushes to the store to get their stuff for camp or the weekend or whatever. Any shorter hours is better, but it doesn't make sense to just shorten it 1 or 2 hours because that. Shorter hours, 6 hours.
You wanna hear my opinion?
Go ahead, Joe.
I really think shorter hours is a good approach. Maybe alternate days. And I know some people need alcohol every day, but or a significant number of people in the community would say that the way we're currently operating is encouraging people to come to Nome from the villages or elsewhere because we have ready access to alcohol. We got a safe place to sleep at night. We've got all of these things. So if you make it so it's more difficult, so you know that 2 or 3 days a week you're not going to be able to buy any alcohol. Big disincentive to come in here if the only reason you're coming here is because it's so easy. Personally kind of torn on that because I don't want to say, okay, let's just ship these people off to Anchorage where they can, that's the next big hub that ignore the fact that they're, human. But I think it would possibly have an effect on Nome's issue. Just shifts it somewhere else. I'd be in favor of shortening hours.
Whatever. Something, but they apply to. It's gonna pop up over there.
There's open 24 hours a day then with following that line.
Yeah, that's against state law.
But we're just reducing the availability just a little.
So we're causing more people who are supposed to be monitoring to keep track instead of having 3 through their night, 10 through their maybe. Or those with last names A through K buy between 4
Monday,
and.
Wednesday, and Friday.
I mean, cities all the time, they reduce hours to control the availability. South, Sunday. Kept me from drinking on Sundays.
Drive into the border. positively affect these people rather than just creating a negative effect. I don't think these guys' issue of let's just build it so they can all come hang out, no. I think that's schools, we don't have jobs. Pieces of the problem.
Gordon got up here and said, this is a supply and demand issue. A little bit by this. If there's not support for it, I'm tired of talking.
Out of all three of these things, I don't like any of them, but the hours thing is the least distasteful. I think that, I don't want to see a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday thing. I want to get my bottle every day of the week if I need it. I think that, we can change the hours and that, I guess what I'm remembering is the people from the hospital saying when the hours were cut down, that they saw a hell of a change in that ER. Basis, I like the idea of shorter hours, whether it's 1 to 7, I don't know. But some modification and, if we're just chopping an hour off either end, I don't think that makes the difference at all. So. Words, the hospital said it made a big difference. How long did that go on?
One of your early emergency ordinances, it went from March 24 through May 14th. I just want to make sure the hours were a little bit longer, what you have here.
For the hours during that.
I have to go upstairs and grab the file, but,
Master probably.
we were looking for it and I found it someplace else, but I'm going to say it was around noon to maybe 9 o'clock. It was, I just recently looked at it. This is the number of hours. And when we looked at that, reducing the time, because you may also remember your bars were closed at that time. Actually, it had a negative, it had a negligible impact on the amount of taxation collected. Now, and we actually pulled, it was a little bit higher because we pulled the alcohol that was not being consumed in the bars. We're now buying through the packaged goods stores. And we used April as our month because, we could do a clear comparison from one year to the other. And I have spoken with some people in the ambulance. If you were going to reduce it, right now it's, I think, till 10 o'clock at night. They get calls up to midnight. If you were going to go down a little bit and maybe lift the hours from 2 to 8 or 2 to 9, that would be, I think would address some of the issues. And I know that Councilmember Johnson has talked about putting a review period in this ordinance, that it would be, examined after 3 to 6 months. And I know I spoke to another member of this body, and, you know, do we allow Saturday, the hours are a little bit longer for people because camp is so important. And if they can't get out on Friday night, they could get out on maybe noon on Saturday or something. Doctor did say cases did go down.
Well, Paul sat and argued earlier for leaving them earlier in the day, not moving them back too far. Rhonda argued on the other end of the side of taking it off the end because they're seeing more activity as a result of the later hours and runners or bottles being.
It's hard to believe that from noon to 9, and then from 10 to, was it right, what is it now, 10 or 11?
It's-
11 to
11 to 10,
11 to 10.
kind of from noon to 9 would. That was. Paul has some.
Go ahead, Paul.
So John, if I may, I did a little bit of data mining through the calls for service at the police department. And just to look at every hour block in a 24-hour day during each month. So the month of January, I've got some charts I'll hand out here. From 00 to 0100 is for all 31 days in January. The total number of calls, total number of calls involving alcohol, total number of ambulance calls in there, and then the total number of actual arrests, not necessarily police calls. And the one item that's pulled out of there is security checks because it's not really a call, it's a number generator that makes the calls look like they're a lot higher than they are. So I've got that are just literally someone calling 911 or 5262 saying there's a problem on Front Street, whatever it is, fire, ambulance, police department, those in there. And you can see from this, and I only did 6 months, you can see the curve, and it's consistent for every single month, starting at about 11 o'clock in the morning. And my concern is we just shift that curve for whatever reason later in the day, it's going to cause the ambulance calls to continue to go on until midnight. And Ken was right that, and I think Ron is right, the later that it's open, that it does seem to still contribute to alcohol calls after 10 o'clock at night. But there is no doubt, and if you don't mind, I'll hand these out to everybody. See all 7 or 6 months, the curve doesn't change. The only oddball one is the first couple of February and probably to in the day is going to cause those ambulance calls. You know, when John and I go on an ambulance call at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday, that's one thing. But if it turns into 8 or 9 o'clock at night, you're going to get less and less responders.
So what you're saying is police calls, and maybe, is this just ambulance or is this everything?
No, so it's total number of ambulance, police, fire is the blue line. Then the red line is if alcohol was involved. So that's a matter of opening up each one of these and see if alcohol was involved. Green are for ambulance calls. And then the yellow line are arrests that were made on Front Street during that.
Obviously, there's a very close correlation between blue and red calls.
Correct.
If alcohol related.
And quite frankly, that's not just Front Street. That's Nome. It may not be the same for the other 1,600 calls that go on the regular part of Nome, but compared to Front Street is.
I love data. So what you're saying is that the hours that they're open are very closely correlated with the number of calls. Around, you know, whether it's 2 or 3 hours later from when they open or 2 hours then 2 hours after they close. So the idea being if you shrink that number from 11 to 6, that should have a noticeable effect on the calls, right?
You could interpret it that way for sure. I think you can. I mean, the data could be interpreted that way.
If they're closely correlated, the idea is that you shrink the number of hours from 11 to 6, you know, that window of active police and emergency calls could also shrink by 6.
So this comes back to something that I talk about. Looking at implementing, I think that you need to, if you decide to go down that path, is set some goals of what you expect that particular ordinance to do, because they're all different. They're all part of this elephant in the rooms. Parts of it are the legs, parts of it are the head, parts of it are the tail. Figure out what part you're expecting that to affect. And what you just said, Scott, is will it affect that? Will the number of hours and will this curve change? The measurable item that you absolutely measure, and then find out if that is effective. And that's when you would know.
Well, the elephant or
I love
Elephant.
using it because I use it enough in my analogies. But
yeah, I mean, from my perspective, the data kind of.
So 1 to 7 was too radical?
Not too radical for me, but the nice thing about ordinances is once they come forward, if they do come forward, then amendments can be proposed to change individual items on there. So
Yeah, but this would be only having to do with hours.
just throw it out instead of spending 15 more minutes trying to decide exactly which hours we want in there. To just throw some hours in there and then because no matter what we put in there, it's going to get amended at
I guess it would be good for the public to have some idea of what they might be. Either that, or we just leave sure that we have it really marked that don't believe these to be true.
no. It did at length, I don't
Yeah,
think.
yeah, okay.
You got in there right now.
1 to 7. Okay, how about 1 to 7 and then,
11 from 11 to 7. 12 to 7.
this was,
This
I
was
guess
a-
the way that it got written is same every
No,
day of the
no,
week.
this is what happened during
Oh, right.
11 to 7, Monday through Saturday. And that was what was.
That's how it went through the COVID one.
I'd be
And this
interested.
is 7 days a week, right?
So then we
No
would
changes
go back to
for
the
Saturday
data.
or Sunday.
dates on that, like
Just for further thing, but to
What's the date?
check against it.
So is it some of this though indicating when the bars are closing also? I mean, there's a
Was
big
that
spike
21?
around 2 o'clock.
24, March 24, 20.
Yeah, that was during 20.
yeah, those are 20. This is all 21. So that's easy to get.
Right. You look at that and see how that compares. Might be interesting.
And it was just March through May, so it's just
So what's in there right now, Brian? No, in the proposed
Proposed ordinance is 1 to 7.
1 to 7. How about if we change that to 12 to 7? That moves it that way a little bit further, and it gives somebody their lunch hour to
Buy booze in the
buy
lunch hour.
buy booze.
Is your lunch hour, then,
But that
you're
would
probably
help.
not working until 7 at night.
So the idea would lessen the negative effect on people working. Buy something.
Okay.
Which is what I said.
Yes,
and
I
then
know.
started arguing.
Okay,
Together
the other thing that's been suggested is a 90-day review or 90-day sunset or something. Where'd that come?
When I think Rhonda and somebody else was talking about month period as a way to measure it.
Yeah.
So because it was 30 days from passage for the effective date, I put 6 months afterwards for a sunset date.
I didn't see that was in there.
Also just throwing something in there to get it out.
Kind of moves, what about the third one? Which is size.
I think enforceability is gonna be a doozy on that one. I like the idea of reducing it, but I think trying to enforce something like that is gonna be next to it. Talking about the size of the bottle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be so many loopholes, it's just, I mean, if we're gonna pass something, it's gotta be enforceable, that's to be honest. Like security guards and the hours, real simple, real straightforward. I think the size and the quantities are gonna be a really tough. The idea, and I like the intent, but I think the reality is gonna be a lot tougher.
How many times has 98% of our population purchased the rock gun? So, I
Keep
mean,
throwing out this 98%, but
okay,
I
I'm
don't
just
think
throwing,
kind of our
that may be an
population
unfair thing.
drinks. So,
No, 98% of the drinking population
Right.
that buys booze.
So at this store, they bring in, I think Scott Crow said when he worked there, and I've seen it, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cases and fill the floor over here of rock gut,
Yeah.
red cap alcohol. So it's a metric ton of the stuff.
Not that people won't drink no matter what, and if you don't have anything at all, then it will be gas or
Call it red
gas
cap,
and-
call it what it is.
All red cap, yeah. But anyway, can we curtail can we say nothing under, I don't know, shelf liquor cost?
so Title IV,
Parcel, then everybody,
yeah, well,
You could do a
when I was
1.75 liter, the same thing. You could have them in the store.
Okay, let Gerald finish his thought.
Yeah, so I read most of Title. The specific prohibits localities, communities from regulating alcohol based on the type of container is what it's type of container, and I don't know. Size. I don't really understand what type of container, unless they're talking plastic versus glass. Right, but that might be something that the attorney would have to.
Okay, Greg, one more time, then we're gonna finish this discussion and get out of here.
I mean, illuminating this a little bit, we're talking about behavior. So if you want to drive traffic to the emergency services, change the hours for their benefit, because you're going to have the problem anyways. The other thing I was going to say, the marijuana industry already has buy an ounce a day. You're only allowed to buy a certain amount a day. It limits our runners. So our runners can't do much. With the limits in there, it is extreme staff and all that stuff to enforce it. They just say, the law is this. You can't buy anymore. And we do get people coming in from the villages and different things, and they, while they're here, get 3 ounces a day, and they take it back and sell it. Alcohol too. I mean, there's no perfect business, but the limit of the amount is very, very, very easy to enforce. Very handy for my staff. I like it.
Where is that? Anyway, you can tell me later.
But yeah, if you want to know. City code, it's the state law.
Right.
Under ACC 17, Alaska statute.
I think that this third one is the one that would have the biggest. Because you're hitting the runners, you're hitting
There's a third one.
the maximum 1 bottle a day with a certain size limit.
How you gonna enforce it?
The same way that you enforce anything. I mean, we'd have to
It's
get,
really 3 bottles a day because there's 3 stores.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Really make bottle.
right.
Right.
But that's
There's no limit
fine
now.
unless you want to do some sort of combined database, which isn't that difficult in today's computerized world. But you don't want to go that route, then it's 3 bottles a day.
I like the idea, I just think from an like an ounce, there's 3 pot shops, it's 3 ounces a day, that's
Yeah,
the
but as a
limit.
marijuana shop, are you required to keep, like, who buys what? A list, a
Keep a
database,
log.
basically?
Right, we're required to have software that keeps track of all that and reports to the state in real time. Liquor stores and the package stores are not required to do any of that. So we have a much bigger advantage over them than when it comes to controls than they have. But it is so easy for a same type of training, ID stuff. And our bud tenders love the fact that they say you can only have an ounce a day, or you can only have this much concentrates a day, you can only have this much. They have total control that way. Right now, without a ban, you can't enforce what you don't have control.
The, I guess the thing is, it comes down to, again, I think originally when we talked about the 750 milliliters, it was, that's the most we want you to buy in one day. And, that was the container thing. But then, gee, what if I want 10 small ones? Because I want a variety pack. And, how does that work? I mean, I just think it's very difficult.
Yeah, you gotta have a guy calculating, okay, this bottle has this, and this bottle has that. I mean,
It says right on the
how are you,
bottle.
if the rule says 1 bottle a day, but the reality is there's 3 bottles a day, I hate to sound like a broker, how are you gonna enforce that without keeping really detailed records that are shared almost instantaneously with the other stores? It's damn near impossible. You're gonna run into all kinds of privacy issues, you know? Security guard's intrusive, but this is not.
So how is your,
It's a state mandate. We get to choose from different. Gas station uses ProFlow, and so do I, which is basically a Seattle company that the state has approved. They have a list of approved states, and that's part of the legislation going through the alcohol. They are going to require others to do the same within the next. Yeah, so you're in our system, so we require you. So, and once you're in the system, it tells you this person's already made a purchase today, tells you what they bought. We have their whole purchase history, the whole 9 yards. It runs me, it ran me about $8,000 with the hardware and the softwares and different things. A month, every month. Terrible.
It's almost like our tax, sales tax thing, we just, in some.
In real time to AMCO, which is the Alcohol Marijuana Control Office. So they see everything we're selling, if we're going over, whatever, they see it all. And at any time they want to look, it helps, so it's made a better relationship. They are supportive of our enforcement, helping us to do the right thing. Not the other way around where they're waiting for you in the bushes and trying to give you a sting operation. It just, that doesn't work.
So we have the hour thing, and we talked about this for our package. And not to pick on anybody specifically, but those used to be tied to what we were doing with pot shops as well. Liquor stores and pot shops were the same hours.
That was just convenience. We didn't want to have to go through all the mechanics of coming up with separate rules.
Well, that was just my thing on Vivitrol. Can we just get some weed and over? Right. Okay, so package stores or package hours, is what we came up with.
Didn't you introduce the one bottle a day thing, or?
I don't think so. Enforceability, it's worth the concept, but just you
It
can't.
seems like if the state provides that enforceability in a required program, like Greg is suggesting for the lawn industry, I guess it would be a tool that if we had that, if you already passed us through the attorney that says you can do these things. If we chose to do them, we could do them.
These three, I mean, those were the things that were in, when Sam was here.
But those are, okay, so then it becomes enforceability, or is it a tool that chief can say somebody ought to curtail behavior?
And we ran into privacy issues, people, city collecting data.
Not collect data. That would be up to the private sector.
Well, then how can, you never limit, you know what I mean, you can go in there and buy and not have to put your name in the system? Then how does the rule work then?
You're
It's the
required to
state-
check
it's
your
a-
driver's license, right?
It's a state
By
law.
law.
You just check. Yeah, you-
You have to
Next
check-
city council meeting got one, and that's the out.
yeah, the amount. Two professionals in the field, just so.
But what I'm asking you is, how could people, if you have to check their driver's license, use that as an into their database, right?
I scan it with a scanner.
Okay, so then how could somebody can't necessarily fool that system if the system is there? You know, the fake name or something else, or choose not to be in that system with their
Right,
ID
but
license.
it's our system which keeps track of what they're doing and stuff. They don't have to be in the system, no, and they can put a fake name if they like, yes.
No, They put a fake name if you're required to check their license.
You're allowed to. You can look at their real name, and I can say, oh, this is Mark Johnson. If you don't want to be known in our system to the state, and the state allows, it. Not something you can't do.
Oh, I see.
I
It's
can
not a
say,
state
I can
mandate.
say you're Superman, and you're in our system under the name Superman.
Okay, so you're required to check their ID to see that they're legal of age to purchase something, but not necessarily it doesn't correspond over to what the system allows for somebody to say, like, if they want to say they're Superman or whatever.
Right.
Okay, so next question then.
No,
Can
no,
I come in and can I come in 5 times same day to your store and use a different pseudonym each time?
No, the only time you.
How do you catch that?
Mark answered it for you just before.
Okay,
Okay,
let's say, yeah, but you have different person. And you come in with your,
Somebody's gonna work that hard. But, you know what? See it on camera, I can see it in the system. I mean, and
Ounce a week, though.
ounce a week goes for, if you want
wrong
the
person looking at me.
80 to 600.
What happens
Now I get it. Now I get it.
Remember what it used to be.
we get
Ain't
customers
right
that come to
anymore.
them.
I haven't heard that term.
You say you
Right out
guys
your
know,
mom's oven.
we are growing some of the highest quality marijuana on the ground.
4 hours during the dinner, before. So what time? Till 5. Oh,
Been like
It's always been
I
that.
thought it was 4 because we scheduled our
No.
safety patrols.
No,
It's always been 5.
Okay,
because
fine.
that's what the state allows is
Yeah,
till
okay.
5.
Thank you.
Yeah.
On this ordinance that comes forward to the agenda on Monday, is it presented by Mayor Hanlon or is it presented by Councilman Pettis?
On it or I can do it.
It's not gonna pass. It's gonna get watered down.
Yeah. one thing that would have made a difference in getting complaints about. It's- No,
What's that?
the,
Bottle size.
Bottle size?
bottle size and number of bottles. I mean, that's without the runners. And that was one of the biggest issues that everybody kept saying is the runners. The runners are coming in, they're taking it down the street. The runners are doing this, the runners are doing that.
Right enough to know.
We didn't even talk about
I would talk about that one.
I'm just wondering if it's again or back to the